Hey guys, I'm from Team Soulforge here. So this is kind of a discussion on, well, really the viability and potential usage of mainly one card and an older mechanic. So and there's a little backstory to kind of get us going. Um, on a kind of like a kind of like a small group gathering. Um, I was playing against one of the guys in the team, Harry. Hey bud, how you doing? And his main deck in premium is Gridora. And being a gauge heavy deck, going against kind of a deck that stalls, got me thinking into kind of, is it possible and potentially viable to run cards that kind of stop me from decking out, which I almost did in that game, and I have done on a few occasions going against slower decks. One of which being in actually the BCS, which was the Tachikaze deck. To be honest, my main fault there was I wasn't going ham on. I decided to damage the eye instead of kind of like I decided to damage the eye too much. But look, the less on that, I'll get back to that when I can. So it got me thinking. I've seen Savage Olga. She's a really decent card from the Racing Tactics. And I'll just go over her skill just briefly. She's a grade 1, so obviously she's got boost and 10,000 power, 10,000 shield, 8,000 power. And her skill is as follows. It's an act on rear and once per turn, and the cost of counterblasting 1 and putting an equip gauge to the bottom of the deck. You give one of your units 10,000 power until the end of turn. And it's the cost that kind of got me. It returns gauges to the bottom of the deck. Yes, it's once per turn, and yes, it's only... It's one gauge to the bottom of the deck. It kind of saves you, like, buffs your deck a little and gives you an extra 10,000 to one of your units. And if you needed to, even the Vanguard. Including the Vanguard, so it is kind of a decent skill, but it's just looking at it and kind of like comparing it to the consistency that I've got in the deck, it doesn't work. And to be honest, it's a decent card of face value, but it's not that viable. And I will go into I've actually got another kind of video lined up for later on. I'll give you more details about that in the end, at the end of the video. And so I kind of had to look into it, and I've spoken to Connor about this, as well. I mean, it came up in conversation, just kind of like I started to theory, kind of like small. It was a small theory that kind of like just turned into a discussion between us two, and I thought I'd just bring it on and like share it with you guys. Now, we actually came to the conclusion that yes, she's a good card. Yes, the skill is good and the cost is kind of decent-ish, but it drops in consistency when put into the current style of the deck. I mean, yeah, you're getting gauges, a lot of gauges, and you're needing the gauges to kind of like get high power and like all that stuff around. But playing it smart, you're not going to need to kind of put cards back to the deck. And the other, and also the other way that is potential is actually the Legion. I have here Tyranno Brute, Tyranno Crake, sorry, and for the Legion, it's an actual skill. It's an act skill that puts 4 cards from your drop zone back to your deck to search out a grade 2 that you would put on your Vanguard circle with with the specific grade 3. Um, it's again, it's a decent way. It gets 3 cards back to your deck. It helps buff and protects you from decking out, but again, but unfortunately, the Legion mechanic is kind of slow. I mean, it's something that's always kind of like I've thought of these things. I've theoried out it, and like just speaking with Connor, it's like he gave me a kind of good insight on a lot of things. But it's really interesting because these cards are kind of decent strategies to save yourself from a deck out. But they're not really viable. Arga, yes, is a good card, but it's not a card to go with the strategy of the deck, and the consistency in it drops the consistency a little. And with the Legion, again, it's a drop in consistency, and to be honest, it's slow. I mean, that is mine and Connor's opinion on this. Who's ever convinced me? And it's both of our opinion on this. If you agree or even disagree, with what I've been saying, just let me know in the comments. And if you have a topic that you'd like me to discuss, and mainly, I am mainly for Tachikaze, so I'm the touchy man. Yeah, I am the touchy man. Yeah. Yeah. So if you'd like to kind of like do like send me any ideas, just let me know. Also, going on to the topic I mentioned earlier, it's going to be on. Well, I'll actually let you into a little thing. It's on the kind of like intended use of gauges and how it's actually progressed as an actual mechanic. Well, from what I can gather was the intended use for gauges, but I will save that for another discussion. And until then, I will see you guys in the next one. Bye.